how to make clients stay with you even if they don't need to. In this video, we are going to cover how to become magnetic so that clients want to stay with you even if they have the freedom to go away and they don't need to. Before we continue, consider subscribing and activating notifications because that way you will know immediately when I release a new communication video, sales video, negotiation video, or any other type of persuasion video. So, making clients want to stay is a big deal because you want clients to stay with you for a long time. But what you want to do here is you want to give them the freedom to go away, but still have them stay with you because of their own initiative. Now, how do you create this? Usually, it's with a combination of good content, good services, a unique positioning, and being knowledgeable at what you do. We're going to cover some insights related to this. So the first thing that you want to do here is to not be comparable to others. You want to have a unique positioning because if you do the same thing as others do, then you are just a commodity. You can easily be replaced by others. And that's when the client starts to compare you to other providers in the same niche and they can easily exchange you. However, if you are in a league of your own and if you do something that other people don't do, then they cannot easily switch to another provider and they cannot easily get rid of you. So if you are unique enough at what you do and you are in your own league, then people cannot easily get rid of you because there is no easy substitute. There are people who do the same, but they're not exactly the same as you, and your value proposition is still unique enough. So that's the first secret. If you are in a league of your own, and if you do something that other people don't do, if you have a unique angle or unique positioning or unique combination of services or knowledge, then you cannot be replaced because there is literally nobody like you. The second point may sound very counterintuitive, but you want to let the person go. What I mean by this is you don't want to create barriers to exit, and you don't want to make the person dependent on you. At the end of the day, you may have a specific length for a contract, naturally. You may have a coaching program of 6 months or a service of 6 months or whatever it is. But what you want to do is you want to enable the person to leave and to do it on their own as soon as possible. Because ironically, if they are free, they will still continue with you if you have more to offer. But if you try to lock them in, then they're just going to want to leave even more violently and get rid of you as soon as possible. In my own practice, I create something called the goodbye plan, which is a plan from day one that tells the client how to continue on their own. So if they needed to end the coaching contract for some reason on the first day, on the first week, or on the second month, or whatever it is, there's an updated goodbye plan on how to do it on their own. Usually people don't buy coaching or they don't buy a service because they can't do it on their own. It's just because of the acceleration. You can get them even more results. So usually it doesn't make a difference. Just because you enable them to do this on their own and they have the freedom, it doesn't mean that you are redundant anymore. They will still seek you to accelerate things. However, if you try to lock them in and keep them prisoners, they are going to try to want to escape at all costs. So ironically, when you let them go and you give them the freedom to do it on their own, they are still going to come back to you because they want the acceleration. And some people are not going to come back to you, but that's fine. If you wanted to try to lock people in, some people would never be locked in regardless of your measures. So it's exactly the same statistic. Now, the next point is pushing this even further, and that is you want to teach independence to your clients. Regardless of what service you are providing or whatever it is that you are teaching them or coaching them to do, you want to always make sure that they can use it on their own. For example, when I do sales coaching or negotiation coaching, I don't want them to depend on me for the techniques. I teach them one technique, we do role plays, and they're ready to do it on their own. They do not depend on me at all ever again to use that. They can continue using me to accelerate those techniques and to become more brushed up in different skills, but I never lock them in or keep them prisoners. So because I always teach with the logic of making them independent and they never depend on me, they can come back to me if they want to, and they do in many cases. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to see yourself almost like a content library in a streaming service or a video game streaming service where somebody can just decide to take a piece of content off the air and you'll never have access to it again. The client doesn't want to be a prisoner and to know that their knowledge is removed in a way if they just stop using you. You always want to give them the techniques or teach them whatever it is that you want to teach them and make them be independent. Because if they are happy enough by being independent, they will keep buying. But if they are unhappy because they feel dependent on you, they're going to have this weird sensation of dependency or even disgust, and they just don't want to be associated with you anymore, and they just want to exit the program. So you always want to make them independent and keep them happy, because if they're happy, they're going to keep buying as long as they get results. Then the next point is counterintuitive, but it's interesting. You want to be excellent at something, even if it's not the subject of the current program. For example, let's say that you are excellent at marketing and you are kind of good at sales. So for everybody that you are coaching in terms of marketing or sales, they should know that you are excellent at marketing. The people who are getting the marketing service are going to benefit from that, but even the people who are learning the sales service that has nothing to do with marketing or little, if they still know that you are excellent at marketing, you're excellent at something else, they are still going to respect you for it. There's something called the halo effect, which is a cognitive bias that tells us that if we find that somebody is excellent in one area, we tend to assume that they're excellent in other areas as well. So even if you're not excellent at all of the areas that you provide services in, if you are excellent in one area, other people are going to see you as excellent in other areas due to the halo effect. So just have one area that you are excellent in and that people know you for being excellent in that area. So even people who are buying services or consulting in other areas are still going to know that you are excellent at another area, and they're going to respect you for it, and they still want to stick with you because they want to stick with somebody who is excellent at something, even if it's not the current thing that they're discussing. And finally, this one may seem obvious as well, but you want to reward people for loyalty. If you have people that stick with you with years on end, you want to give something as a reward for their loyalty, either reduced prices or exclusive access to events or early access for courses or other content that you may have. In other words, if the person is not rewarded for staying with you in the long term, then they have no reason to stay with you in the long term. But the opposite also happens. If they get enough bonuses and incentives and exclusive things due to staying with you in the long term, they're going to want to stay with you in the long term instead of just purchasing a service or program and then leaving. Naturally, this is not going to be enough to convert everybody, but it's going to be enough to keep a lot of clients that otherwise would leave in the short term. And naturally, there's a fine line to navigate here, right? Because even the people who buy in the short term, they want a complete service. You don't want to make it seem like you're selling something incomplete to the short-term people and something complete to the long-term people. You want to make it seem like you are selling something complete to the short-term people, but that the long-term people have that thing and even more. It's almost like that logic of DLC in video games, right? You don't want to sell an incomplete video game and then sell the part that's missing. You want to sell a complete video game and then possibly sell an even additional piece of content that is an extra, but it's not part of the essential. It's a funny analogy, but it works very well in this case. So basically what you want to do is you want to keep the short-term clients satisfied and you want to keep the long-term clients satisfied even more, because that way they will have an incentive to be long-term clients. If you enjoy these techniques, take a look at the Negotiating Everyday Things playlist, where we touch on how to sell, negotiate, and persuade in everyday situations.